It was a beautiful Wednesday morning in Texas. I had flown down to Houston the night before to test our crystallization hardware in a zero-gravity environment. To do that, I would be spending 2 days on jet flights run by NASA out of Ellington Field, which produced short, repeated periods of weightlessness. Those periods of zero gravity were produced by a roller coaster in the sky, traveling at speeds up to almost 700 miles per hour aboard a KC-135 jet, flying at 35,000 feet, being flown through repeated violent ascents and descents. As the jet flew over the top of each ascent, the contents and individual in the belly of the aircraft would float within their designated area of the cabin. Conversely, at the bottom of each descent, the same contents and people were pressed into the floor at twice the normal gravitational force. The entire process lasted for about 3 straight hours and was informally referred to by the flight staff and crew as a bounce flight. For many first-time passengers, the plane, and the experience within, became known as the Vomit Comet. The purpose of this trip was to satisfy a final requirement stated in Payloads' contract with the Soviet space program, that all flight hardware be safety and performance tested in a zero-gravity environment, as part of the lengthy process to eventually send our equipment into orbit. With this requirement in mind, the goals of my trip were twofold. First, to demonstrate that the equipment could be operated according to a simple protocol while in a weightless condition, and second, to demonstrate that the same equipment would not display a failure in zero gravity. The first issue was straightforward. The only thing an astronaut would be asked to do is to turn a few knobs on each device once or twice. The second issue was a bit more questionable. The depressing tendency of our hardware to leak their contents, although now appearing to be solved, still weighed on my mind. Whereas on Earth that leak might amount to a bit of fluid dripping innocuously down the side of the apparatus, on the space station the possibility of experimental liquids floating around and eventually ending up inside an electrical control panel, or worse yet, an astronaut's mouth or eye, was something nobody wanted to imagine, hence the additional requirement for documented quality control testing in zero gravity. Before the hardware or I would be allowed anywhere near a NASA bounce flight, I had been required to submit myself to a physical exam conducted by a military physician, and then to attend a 1-day training course run by the Navy to become educated on the physiological effects of spatial disorientation brought on by rapid changes in G-forces. The doctor's exam had been taken care of a few months earlier on a crisp September afternoon in Boston and proved to be no problem, as I was in my mid-20s and in decent physical shape. The doctor did note that I was substantially red-green colorblind, and produced a certificate that approved me for further physiological training by the United States military, but banned me from using color signals to land my fighter plane on the deck of an aircraft carrier. I informed him that ban would not pose a problem.